Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
If any harm follow, then thou shalt give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burning for burning, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. I guess it's not advanced enough for modern society. What we need is some deplorable liberal judges to interpret right for wrong from us. How's that working out for the crime wave in San Francisco? How's that working out for the crime waves in most major cities of America? Not very well. So there are many things that could be done if we had a legitimate government, which we don't. Trump came to power telling us that he would take care of these things. He said he would ban the immigration of Muslims from certain countries. Put an X through that one. And, of course, in 2016, he said, I think Islam hates us. There's a tremendous hatred there. And he was roundly chewed out for that. During a debate on October 9th with his Democratic rival, he said, these are radical Islamic terrorists, and Clinton won't even mention the word. Nor will President Obama, Trump said. Now, it is true when he was in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, he did say that Muslim nations must be willing to take on the burden if we are going to defeat terrorism and send its wicked ideology into oblivion. And he used the words Islamist terror groups. He didn't use that. It was in his written speech, but he didn't use that. He turned it into Islamists and Islamic terror of all kinds. Meaning he got as close as any president could get to saying it like it is. Compared to the 8 years under the Islamophile president that we had before, that's a big word for Jake Tapper. That's several syllables right there. Islamophile, that's what Obama was, an Islamophilic man. He could never find anything wrong with any Muslim, no matter what they did. And that is because both fathers were Muslims. His first natural father was a Muslim, and then his adopted father was a Muslim. Nothing wrong with that, but that made him soft on Islamic terror. And so we voted in someone who promised us he would be hard on Islamic terror. And I'd like to know what's going on at the DHS, the FBI, the NSA right now. Are they still busily listening in on conservatives' actions and emails and phone conversations, or have they turned their attention where we wanted it to be turned, where it never was turned? With a question, which is this. Should all those on the FBI or DHS watch lists who are being watched by our fearless anti-terror, whatever they are, should they be put into preventive detention before they kill some children? I know it shocks the civil libertarians to say such a thing, and they have right to fear that innocents may be put on that list. And civil libertarians will always say, I'd rather see 99 guilty terrorists go free than one innocent terrorist be arrested. Well, if it's your daughter being macerated by a nail bomb, I would say the reverse is true. So I bring it back to you. How many more children have to die? Are you afraid of a guy like Jake Tapper? You're afraid of these school moms in the media who will lecture you if you do what has to be done, I say to my government? See, once again, the government has failed them in England because of so many different reasons. I mean, you could put it any way you want. Political correctness, it doesn't have any meaning anymore. It's worn out. It's plain old political cowardice. It's called capitulation. It's capitulating to the Nazis in headscarves before they're all on their knees braying to Mecca. Shall I say that again? Because that's what's coming. Follow the arc of what's going on in England, and you will see the entire nation on their knees braying to Mecca, unless the men of England stand up and take their nation back, and the same is true in this country. I bring it back to you. What would you recommend be done to solve Islamic terrorism in the United States of America? How many more children have to die? There are other topics. There are other topics not directly related. Price tag on universal health care is in California, and it's bigger than California's budget. The liberals keeps screaming about single-payer health care system. That's what you see in all the liberal publications. Single payer, single payer, single payer, single payer. Well, if that was introduced, it would cost $400 billion. And it would mean that it exceeds all of the budget in the state of California. But the liberals haven't backed off. What they want is everyone to get free health care, including all the illegal aliens who have snuck into our nation, in addition to covering all undocumented people, meaning illegal aliens who don't have any entitlement to health care. The goal is to expand health access to people who, even with insurance, may skip doctor visits or stretch out medications due to high costs and copays and deductibles. This is what's running the dialogue in America. Fanatical university fools who have never lived in the real world. They're killing us all. They're bankrupting us all. And if that's not enough for you, here's another topic. For years, we have been regaled with the lie that man evolved from a lineage in Africa. I've said that is not true. I said to you that when I grew up, it was pretty clear that man evolved from Mesopotamia. That was known scientific knowledge for ages. And then all of a sudden, along with the political correctness of our time that has poisoned virtually everything, the Lysenkoism, as I called it in my book, Government Zero, where I pointed out how they polluted science, which has become so political that there's really almost no science left in some fields at all. It's all politics, as it was under Joseph Stalin in the Soviet Union. Real scientists are driven out of science and not allowed into science. In order to get a grant, you have to show in advance you're going to give them the results that they want in order to prove a particular political point. So we were told that all man evolved from Africa. Now, I have nothing against Africa, a beautiful continent, but I didn't think it was true based upon the knowledge that I had and what I had researched. And I will remind you, I'm a highly educated man with many higher degrees. I'm not your run-of-the-mill talking head. So it's come out now that man evolved from Europe, not Africa, based upon some new fossil evidence. I can guarantee you this will not make it to the nightly news. Truth is dead, but the savage nation is alive. The radio show is here. You know, every time an incident like this occurs, whether it's in the U.S. or Belgium or France or England in this case, the next day we see the heavily armed men go in with the vests and the machine guns. Why don't they go in a day before and raid the homes of the people that they know are going to do it? What I'm about to tell you has not been reported widely in the media. This refugee with his entire pack of rat family came from Libya. Father was a security worker at the airport. Ramadan, that was the father's name. Oh, yeah, Ramadan was a security worker at the airport. But here's something you don't know. Unconfirmed reports in Manchester that the entire family, apart from the two eldest sons, recently fled back to their native Libya. I'm supposed to believe that it was him acting alone. It wasn't the hatred in the cauldron of his government-owned flat. Oh, no wonder he was on the watch list. Radicalized in the last couple of years, we hear, but not arrested. Neighbors describe Abidi as a native of Libya as an abrasive, tall, skinny young man who was little known in the neighborhood. None of them knew him. Now they don't know him. No, I don't know him. No, never saw him before. No. Oh, but he wears traditional Islamic clothing. Ranting messages threaten further attacks on, quote, worshippers of the cross. Ooh. 22 killed after the concert. Suicide bomber Salman Abidi. The 22-year-old Manchester-born attacker was heard chanting Islamic prayers loudly in the street outside his home in the south of the city. Abidi is the third of 4 children by Libyan refugees who came to the UK to escape the Gaddafi regime. They are believed to have lived in the fallow land area of South Manchester for 10 years. I wonder what the welfare cost was for the last 10 years, added up and down for medical, dental, legal, shoes, hairdos. You know, it cost a lot for the English to take care of the refugees. And what about Theresa May, the great prime minister who had nothing to say? She called them cowards. Yeah, that's the most she could say. Okay. Comes as dramatic pictures emerge showing anti-terror police swooping to arrest a 23-year-old man in Manchester. Really? Registered as having lived with his mother, Samia Tabal, Father Ramadan. Okay, you get the picture. On a watch list, chanting Islamic prayers. They know he's an extremist. They know he's about to go off like a rocket. And the police have their hands tied by the Jake Tappers and the Wolf Blitzers and the liberal lawyers of England, in my estimation. They're afraid of the twits at the BBC. They can't. You think that the police can't do their job, whether it's in America or here? Are you crazy? You think these muscle-bound police are not capable of wringing their necks, ripping them out and wringing their necks in the streets if they had to? As they should do! We are at war, you stupid idiots. You're so brain damaged. You're so whipped by the fools and the drug addicts in the media. You don't even understand it when children are being blown up by nail bombs, that you are living through a war and we're not fighting a war. We're not fighting a war with one hand behind our backs. We're not fighting the war at all. We're doing zero, nothing. What country are we living in? An insane country that's been destroyed from within by the Trojan horse of the drug-addicted liberals. Fired Democrat IT staffers under investigation for security breach have all fled to Pakistan. Daily Caller Luke Rosiak, a criminal suspect in an investigation into a major security breach on the House of Representatives computer network, abruptly left the country and gone to Pakistan with her family, which has significant assets and VIP-level protection, a relative and others told the Daily Caller. Hina Alvi, her husband Imran Awan, and his brothers Abid and Jamal were very highly paid, shared IT administrators working for multiple House Democrats until their access to congressional IT systems was terminated February 2nd as a result of the investigation. Capitol Police confirmed the investigation is ongoing. No arrests were made. The Awans are accused of stealing equipment from members' offices without their knowledge and committing serious, potentially illegal violations on the House IT network. Are you ready for the rest of the story? Many of the stupid Democrats who employed the Awans are members of the House Committee on Homeland Security, the Committee on Foreign Affairs, and the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. Their positions gave them access to members' emails and confidential files. It gets even worse. In addition, the Pakistani Imran was given the password for an iPad used by then Democratic National Committee Chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, a Florida Democrat. The five came to the U.S. from Pakistan. Citing privacy concerns, Twitter didn't flag a pro-ISIS tweet 4 hours prior to Manchester attack. Are you listening to this? 2 tweets appeared to predict the suicide bombing at the concert. Twitter refused to flag the pro-ISIS tweet hours prior to the Manchester attack. Is it time for the government to clamp down on Facebook and Twitter and not leave it in the hands of these greedy pigs who run these companies for profit, not for our safety or our salvation? The answer is, of course, yes. In any sane nation, the government would step in and seize control of Twitter and Facebook. I'll be right back.
Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Civilization is under assault by 7th century subhumans. Make no mistake about it, they're not part of the human family. Anybody who would put a nail bomb in a concert hall where little girls are going there just to enjoy themselves is not a part of the human race. Now, having started with that, you're asking yourself, what could have been done to prevent it? Well, like everything, the so-called British counterintelligence police were watching the bomber. As in America, we watch them. We follow them. We spend millions and millions, tens of millions of dollars observing them. But no one stops them before they set off the nail bombs in concert halls or take a truck and drive over your son's head. Well, there are things that could be done in a sane society. We go back to the Bible. Say, why the Bible? Because this is what they claim they are, religious people. And since much of their religion is based upon the Jewish Old Testament, the extremist views of the Old Testament at that, Then we go back to the extremist views of the Old Testament where it says, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burning for burning, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. It's quite clear. They know the Old Testament. They practice a form of the Old Testament in their own holy book. And they said that they did this because it was a shameless haul. Are you listening to how psychotic these people are? The fanatics who did a thing like this, the Muslim fanatics. You can't say this without saying Muslim or Islam, because that's what they did it. ISIS took credit for it. I know that the popular view is that ISIS is not Muslim, but that's stupid. Even Muslims will tell you that's the stupidest thing you could ever say. Of course they're Muslims. They're just practicing a 7th century of Islam. Their minds were poisoned by the Wahhabi sect of Islam, promulgated by the wonderful friends of ours in Saudi Arabia. Wahhabism came out of Saudi Arabia. So, in other words, there's a much bigger picture of this than you may imagine, and it's going to take more than arms deals to the Saudi princes and king to stop this. It's going to take a sea change of thinking to stop the next nail bomber. You can't just go in there with brave police in riot gear and machine guns after the fact and pull the bums out by their beards or whatever. You have to go in a day before it happens. So you have to do preventive detention. In other words, if the FBI was following organized criminals in America years ago under Rudy Giuliani, they knew who the gangsters were, and they sat there outside the clubs with the cameras and the tapes, and they put them in here and they put them in there, and they did this, and they did that, and they waited for them to commit the crime. Did they always wait for them to commit the crime before they arrested them? Well, that's our law, isn't it? Our stupid, idiotic Western laws are killing us. That is why crime thrives. That is why disease thrives, and that is why terrorism now thrives. And the virulence of terrorism is thriving in England because of liberalism. Have we heard one statement yet from the Muslim mayor of London, Mr. Khan, who spit upon those who voted to exit the European Union? Perhaps Mr. Khan has spoken, I don't know. Have we heard a voice yet from CAIR, C-A-I-R, alleged to be a front for Hamas, the Muslim Brotherhood, and other terrorist organizations? Has CAIR yet given any statement about this nail bomb in England? We know ISIS supporters are celebrating the terror attack on social media.
Savage.
To this story out of New York City that you may not have heard. The driver who drove his car into a crowd on 4 blocks of Times Square, killing an 18-year-old tourist and injuring 22 others. He was not a terrorist per se. He should be tried for murder, by the way. He tried to flee after he did this, and his car smashed into something. And he ran out of his car. This you don't know about. And he started to punch people and tackle people. But 3 brave men, all police, of course, the ones that Maxine Waters hates so much, a parole officer, a traffic cop, and a patrol cop who happened to be there, tackled this piece of garbage, threw this filthy piece of garbage against the wall, and pinned his arms behind his back, and he started to scream and cry. You see the pictures in the New York Post of this thing. This thing. I would try him on terrorism charges. I don't care whether he did it for Allah or he did it because he's just crazy. I'd try him on the terrorism charges. I guarantee you he'll get some shyster lawyer from NYU who'll say he was manhandled by the 3 cops because they didn't allow him to kill another woman. Go look at the pictures. I've linked them on michaelsavage.com. There he is. And he's got a name. It doesn't matter to you what his name is. Richard Rojas. He had 2 previous drunk driving convictions. You listening to me? Twice convicted for drunk driving. Once his Honda crashed against the stanchion on Broadway and 45th Street, this drunk, crazy man jumped out of his car, tackled people, punched people. But it was 3 brave cops who threw this piece of garbage against the wall, and he started to cry as they pinned his arms behind his back. Maybe some shyster lawyer from NYU could run down over there and say they manhandled him. It was police brutality. Well, thank God for the cops. There's another story about police. I'll tell you, it's really getting me sick. Thank God this one ended well as well. This one is of a cop. He sees a car in Colorado on the side of the road. New York Daily News. Body cam video shows Colorado deputy shoots suspect who attacked him with a rifle. He sees a car on the side of the road in Colorado. He gets out. He goes to the right side of the car. He tells the guy to get out. The guy comes out with a rifle and attacks him with the butt of the rifle, and his instincts kick in, and he shoots this piece of garbage twice in the arm, and you hear the guy screaming, I did nothing. And right away he knew the defense already. I didn't do anything. What are you doing? What are you doing? Why'd you shoot me? I didn't do anything. Got all the words out of the ACLU. You hearing me? The 25-year-old driver, Deon Marcus Rivas Maestas, comes out of the car with a rifle and attacks the officer. The cop goes on instinct and shoots his own weapon twice, striking this piece of garbage in the arm. And the guy starts screaming on the ground. You got to watch this tape. I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. Why you shoot me, man? Why you shoot me, man? This is what the cops have to put up with. They're all trained, all these drug addicts, these drug dealers. They've been trained left and right by the very same forces that are attacking Trump. All of these people who teach the youths, the juveniles at the universities. There's a group in Berkeley, I don't know what they're called. It was up to me. I'd arrest them for sedition, all of them. They're called Ruckus Group or something. They teach these young drug addicts how to attack police and get away with it. They teach these young drug addicts how to put masks over their face and spray Trump supporters with pepper spray and say that they were the ones who were attacked. We are at war. Make no mistake about it. We are involved in a civil war that's being conducted by the same cabal that gave us George Soros and gave us Barack Obama. The very same cabal is at war now against everybody who voted for Donald Trump and wants the sovereignty of America to prevail. Never forget the motto of the savage nation: borders, language, culture. Remember, by attacking Trump, they're attacking all of us who voted for Trump. They're saying we are illegitimate. They're saying we're working in collusion to bring down America, when in fact the opposite is true. It was Barack Obama who brought America to its knees. It was Barack Obama who turned race against race. It was Barack Obama who turned mobs against the police. Never forget what that devil did to this country. No man is an island entire of itself. Each is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a clod be washed away by the sea, Europe is the less, as well as if a promontory were, as well as if a manor of your own or of your friends were. Each man's death diminishes me, for I am involved in mankind. Therefore, send not to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. John Donne wrote it in 1624, and they're no longer taught in a university. Do you know why? Because he's considered an evil white male. Instead, it is replaced with garbage, illegitimate garbage, rubbish, filth, anti-Americanism. Anti-Americanism has now replaced literature. Anti-Americanism has now replaced everything decent in the universities. They have been polluted just as the media has been polluted. They were educated. Never forget who this new wave of so-called presenters are and where they've come from. They've come from cauldrons of hatred, academies of deceit, academies of racism, academies of a desire to wipe away the greatness of European civilization. This is what happens when a nation becomes brainwashed. This is what goes on the campuses today. The children are afraid to say one word about the radicals who are assaulting them, about the separatists who may be African American who demand this and demand that, separate housing, separate graduations, separate programs for themselves, reinstituting segregation. And everyone sees it and no one says a word. They're intimidated by this insanity. But let's get back to Donald Trump. We agree that he's being attacked not only because of his policies of borders, language, and culture and his nationalism, but also because of his absolute maleness and his boldness. Isn't that an element as well? Never forget what is at stake here. It's a far larger picture than just this big, big man called Donald Trump. As flawed as he is not what they try to make him out to be. And remember, as they come for Trump, they come for you. The battle lines have been drawn. They want a civil war. They've got a civil war. You have the power to turn off CNN. You have the power to never watch the filth and the dirt on MSNBC. You have the power to do to them what they've done to me. You have the power to say no to it. You don't have to watch that garbage. You don't have to watch the fake comedians on HBO. You can turn it off. You don't have to sit there and listen to it with the fake tracks of laughter and the drug addicts in the audience. Remember how powerful you are. Remember you are actually the majority. And never forget that you have more disposable income than all of the progressives think that they may have. You control the economy of this country. You have the power to shape the future of this country. You can turn off those networks that insult you. You can turn off those shows that make a mockery of your beliefs. The diminutive polyps in the media are all saying, impeach, 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 when they know that they can't impeach him. It's impossible. There's no way it will happen. All they want to do is stop his agenda, damage the Repubs for 2018, and stall any investigation of Hillary Clinton and her uranium deal with Russia. Needless to mention, the crimes and misdemeanors committed by Barack Obama, creating the largest surveillance state in the history of the world. I can go down the list if you'd like, but that'll never happen. Look, the first rule that everyone learns in grade school is the best defense is a good offense. Let's just lay it on the line here. The best defense is a good offense. So the Dems are playing defense by playing offense. Unfortunately, Trump has no team to fight back. And that's because, I don't know why, because he doesn't have what he needs. He needs attack dogs. He doesn't have them. Not only does he not have them, he has people who are undermining him from within. That's on top of it all. Right around him, his communications team may as well be working for the Democrats. By what shows they're sending him on? Lester Dolt sitting him in a chair, making him look like a schoolboy being lectured to by the principal. Are you kidding me? They should be fired for what they did to him on that Lester Holt interview. Lester Dolt. Lester Dolt attacked him viciously during the campaign. You forgot that? I didn't. How come his campaign director didn't remember that? Because his campaign director is working for the other team. That's why. Why won't he come on radio shows? Put mine aside. The campaign team may as well be working for the Democrats. They send him into hostile territory every day of the week. So he's got his problems. But as commander-in-chief and as the chief executive, he should be able to see through this. He should be able to fire his communications director and say, get out of here. Just get out of here for what you're doing to me. But who is he going to bring in? That's the question. Who would take the job right now? Do you know anybody who would take the job right now? That's another question. Who do you know would take a job in there who's competent? They're all afraid to take the job because they'd be tar brushed for the rest of their life. They would be absolutely radioactive. So like I've been saying, he needs a Roy Cohn. He needs someone like Roy Cohn, a vicious, intelligent lawyer who could tear the opposition's throat out. But lawyers like that, who exist, by the way, would never take the job because they all work for the Democrats. They're tearing his throat out. It's that simple. I don't know, do the Republicans even have lawyers like that on their side? I don't even know. They didn't know such lawyers? That's all. So can we move on? No, we can't move on. This is all you want to talk about. Let's play the impeachment montage by the diminutive polyps in the media.
Welcome back. You're watching MSNBC. I'm Stephanie Ruhle. The calls are growing for the ouster of President Trump. Another member of Congress wants him impeached.
Is that potentially impeachable if it's an obstruction of justice?
You were saying that this could lead down the road to impeachment, but we weren't anywhere near that yet. Does this breaking news tonight change your view?
Are we getting closer and closer to the possibility of yet another impeachment process?
Cancerous.
Reluctantly, Wolf, I have to say yes.
Is it an impeachable offense if, in fact, the president obstructed justice?
So in terms of impeachment, are you taking action, working with Republicans, or doing anything that would actually move that agenda forward?
Do you harbor any hopes that you will find a conservative legal mind to match your desire to proceed with impeachment?
Impeachment originates in the House. House leadership and the Republican Party has shown no interest in that. And it seems like
I can't take it anymore. These are not benign polyps. These are cancerous polyps in the media. They need to be excised with a hot needle. It's unbelievable to me how sick they are that they don't think that we see through them. They all repeat each other. They start with a lie and build upon the lie. Then they build upon the lie's lie. Then they build upon the lie's lie. They're not going to get anywhere. It's not going to happen. If you need a laugh, we have waiting for you Maxine Waters, because she, of all people, should have been arrested for what she did with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. She was responsible for the scandal of Freddie Mae and Fannie Mac, which cost taxpayers tens of billions of dollars. Here she is. Listen to her now in 10.
I know that there are those who are talking about, well, we're going to get ready for the next election. No, we can't wait that long. We don't need to wait that long. He will have destroyed this country by then. We cannot wake up every morning to another crisis, to another scandal. We cannot have the uncertainty. Something is wrong.
Now, look, I got to tell you, Maxine Waters should have been jailed for what she did with Freddie Mae and Fannie Mac. And the one who worked with her, Barney Frank, remember him? Remember Barney Frank from Massachusetts? He was smart enough to resign and not run again because he knew he would have gone to jail. This one wasn't smart enough to resign because she knew she was untouchable. You get it? I'll be right back.
Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Trump, while he's under attack by the polyps in the media, the government media complex, in the midst of being assaulted by the lowest forms of humanity, he continues to do the job we sent him to Washington to do. Now, if you think I'm going to abandon him like all of the never-Trumpers, if you think I'm going to stab him in the back and jump ship because all the others are doing it, I'm not going to do that. I'm made of better stuff than that. I'm not going to join the chorus of those who were for Cruz or for any of the other lessers who could not win. They are now sticking a knife in Trump's back as he is in trouble. The answer is stick a knife in the other party's back, not in his back. And I've said this before, and I will say it again as I said it to the Democrat attorney. What is missing, I said, sir, is a Roy Cohn. If I were Donald Trump, I would hire 100 aggressive lawyers under a Roy Cohn-like lawyer, and I would investigate all of those who are persecuting me with these false charges. I would put 10 investigators on every senator, every congressman, every reporter who has it in for me. And once I turn over every rock in their lives and I expose what's real about their pollution, you will see most of this will go away. It's astonishing to me how successful propaganda can be. It's shocking to me how they could take a man like Donald Trump, as flawed as he is, and turn him into a villain. A villain he is not, flawed he is. And how, by attacking Trump, what they're really doing is attacking the Americans who voted for Trump. Make no mistake about it. By attacking Trump, they're saying drop dead on the border with Mexico. We love the drugs. We love the crime. We love the illegal aliens. We love the meth dealers pouring over the border. We love the throat cutters with tattoos. We want more of them in our cities because we love the drug trade. By attacking Trump, they're saying we love an unfair trade deal where Eddie loses his job. We love jobs going to Canada. We love jobs going to Mexico. We love jobs going to China. We want the white male suffering with nothing in this country. We want the white male out of work. We want him humiliated and broken. And language, we don't want a language in this country. We want a bastardization. We want no one to understand the next man. We want a Tower of Babel in this nation. They are attacking us. They're attacking the core of the nation. They're attacking every last one of us who voted for Trump. Make no mistake about it. The battle lines are drawn. The game has begun. And I am Michael Savage, and I'm not jumping ship just because you think it is convenient to do so. I am a loyal man. Why is it that for 8 years, no matter what Hussein Obama did, we were not allowed to criticize him? Why is it that for 8 straight years, no matter what Hussein Obama did, no matter how he abused the taxpayer, no matter what nefarious deal he was involved in, $150 billion sent to Iran? Where'd the money come from? Where were all of the brave Wolf Blitzers and Jake Tappers at that time? How come they didn't raise one voice of protest?
Savage. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
Hello, deplorables. Michael Savage, still banned from UK, petitions Donald Trump to step in. It's a huge story. It's a very big story. You say, do I really want to go to England? I remember the joke when it happened. I woke up, I went on the Drudge Report. I'd never spoken to Matt Drudge prior to that. I didn't know him. And there was the article and said, talk shows Michael Savage banned from Britain. Went on the radio that day. You know, I was going to go to the government before, and I had a major, I never told you this, a U.S. senator, who I will not name, wanted to run a petition for me in the U.S. Senate about 5 years ago during the Obama reign of terror. And I said to him, he's a very good conservative, I said, don't do it. It'll only weaken the party for you to bring this up now. I don't feel the same thing about Donald Trump. I believe that Donald Trump has reached a point in his presidency with his own base that is questionable. Let me put it to you that way. People don't really know what to make of him at this point. Everything has changed in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Prior to the launching of the Tomahawks in Syria, everybody was behind him, more or less. He had a huge approval amongst his own base. After the launch of missiles in Syria, everyone shook their head and said, why is he doing it? 2 days ago, he said we don't belong in Syria. Then they came up with the big lie that Syrian forces launched gas and their own citizens along with Russia and almost went to war with Russia. Somebody whispered in Donald's ear and everything changed from that point on. I believe that if President Trump steps in over the next couple of weeks to get the British government and he tweets something about this, he will reignite his base's faith in him. How do you like that? What do you think? As we well know, England was taken over a long time ago as a result of open borders. They have been overrun completely by a foreign culture, a foreign religion, and a foreign people that has virtually subdued what was British. Now, I recognize that some Brits disagree with me, but they're actually in the very small minority. The true Brits agree with me. But nevertheless, we're going to talk about the fact that I'm still on the travel ban list because on Friday, May 5th, we are celebrating, if you want to call it that, the 8th year that I have been prohibited from entering this nation. And what's interesting is that they permitted in Muslims who call for the overthrow and the death of the Queen, the introduction of vile Sharia law, the banning of free speech, etc., while I am not permitted into Britain. And so the folks who are my friends in the media said, Michael, it's time for you to appeal to the President of the United States to get your name off the list. Now, this is a very calculated risk. I got to be very straight up with you. Some friends of mine in the media said, don't do it because Donald Trump will not intervene on your behalf. Others said, just do it behind the scenes. I made my own decision, which was to run a petition to get as many signatures as I can, urging Donald Trump and the U.S. State Department to demand that Britain remove Michael Savage from its travel ban list. What is utterly amazing to me is that over the weekend, the phonies in the media said that there's no such thing as fake news. Guys like Carl Bernstein and Woodward, who've lived on one story for 40 years, gave this highfalutin, nonsensical speech. Any attack upon any one of us is an attack upon all of us. All of the brave boys and girls in the empty dresses of the media did nothing for me. They won't even mention it. And yet I want to remind you that when this happened, when I was banned from entering Britain back in 2009, May 5th, 2009, I had news trucks outside of my house, BBC, CNN, they were all here. Everyone but Fox News. Even then, Fox News did not cover it. I got zero attention on Fox News. By the way, except for one host on Fox News. It was O'Reilly who mentioned it, and Megyn Kelly mentioned it, incidentally, at the time. The others were too cowardly to mention it. But nevertheless, we're living here now a number of years later, and you say, well, look, Mike, you've done well without them. Why are you making such a big deal of this? Well, the British government put me, Michael Savage, on a list of 22 people at the time, including terrorists, neo-Nazi murderers, neo-Nazi murderers who are banned from entry because the government believed their views might provoke violence. So we have a petition that you can sign. It costs you nothing. We're not sending it to the government. But without Congress, I need your help. I'm not asking for donations. I'm asking you to go on to michaelsavage.com and sign the petition. And the petition's very simple. It says, well, read it for yourself. I never advocated violence. The British government never specified any statements made by Savage to back its claim. Whereas former Republican Congressman Alan West wondered how a nation who believes in freedom of speech and press could ban Savage when there has not been one incident recorded in the United States regarding Dr. Savage instigating violence, let alone serious criminal acts, unquote. Whereas Michael Savage has been known to his millions of listeners for more than 22 years as an advocate of the patriotic values of Borders, language, and culture. Whereas the British government has protected many Muslim hate preachers who espouse the overthrow of the British government while banning Savage. Whereas official correspondence released under the UK's Freedom of Information Law revealed a decision was made at the highest level of the government to use Savage's name to provide balance to a ban list otherwise dominated by Muslim extremists. We found that out, by the way, through Freedom of Information. Whereas Britain is the country of the Magna Carta, which gave birth centuries later to Americans' constitutional right to free speech. Whereas emails released by WikiLeaks show that then U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton refused to act on Savage's behalf. We got the evidence of that. Whereas Clinton counsel Cheryl Mills said it would be hypocritical to press for Savage's removal from the British list on free speech grounds. Listen to this. Since the Obama administration thought it also would have had legal justification to ban Savage. I want you to listen very carefully to this. Whereas President Trump, whose winning campaign closely reflected Michael Savage's philosophy of Borders, language, and culture, and who had the crucial support of Savage and the Savage Nation, himself is the target of a UK citizen petition to ban President Trump from entering the British Isles. And then it ends, it says, whereas President Trump has vowed to combat the censorship of free speech that is motivated by political correctness, we hereby add our names to this petition calling for President Trump to demand of the British government to remove Savage from its travel ban. It is outrageous. You can read it yourself. I've never advocated violence. Stand up to political correctness and sign the petition. It's that simple. I need to get an awful lot of signatures, incidentally, to get the president's attention. We'll see if he does it. Now, many of you will say, well, no, actually, let me ask you something. Not many of you would say, do you think President Trump will act to demand that Britain remove Michael Savage from his travel ban list? Do you think he will or he won't? I think I'm going to ask my audience that question. Given the president's equivocation on so many issues that he ran on, what do you think will happen? I don't have an answer for you, to be honest with you. And the only reason I'm doing this is because I don't want to be on this list. This is a horrendous blight on my name. Now, some would say it's a badge of honor to have been banned to enter Britain. I don't think it's a badge of honor. I don't think that it's a great blight on my name, actually. I think it's a terrible thing to do to a man like me who has worked his whole life for freedom, period, end of story. The bottom line is that I appealed to Hillary Clinton when I was banned in Britain while she was Secretary of State. My British lawyer asked her to fight for me, to lift me from a travel ban to the UK. Now, what happened was pretty shocking. Here I am, a talk show host who does not advocate violence, who advocates patriotic traditional values, borders, language, culture, who found himself on a list not to be allowed to enter England. That's what I told the BBC. And I said, what does that say about the government of England? It says more about them than it does about me. I was put on a list of terrorists, neo-Nazi murderers who were in prison for killing Jewish children on buses, all because of my speech in America. And I said, this is the nation where the Magna Carta was created? And so what I did was I appealed to Mrs. Clinton. I had my lawyers in England wrote her a very lengthy letter, which she received, and she refused to help me. In fact, if you read the article on WorldNet Daily, you'll find an email, a copy of the email from HROD17 at ClintonMail.com. This is through WikiLeaks. Do you have any idea what I'm saying to you? Do you have any idea this is the first time we actually see an email from Mrs. Clinton about me? What did she say? Did she say, I'm going to help Michael Savage even though I detest his politics? Did she say, I detest the man's politics, but I will help him because he's an American citizen and I am his representative as Secretary of State, and we believe all Americans are entitled to freedom of speech? No, it's not what she said. She said something else. It said, subject, savage holding pattern and next steps. It was sent to Mills, Cheryl D. Mills. Any of you in the audience know the name Cheryl D. Mills? Kind of a prominent woman in the Clinton administration right now. And then Cheryl Mills sent an email to Jacob J. Sullivan. Isn't he a continuous player? Isn't he still up there in the camp? In a second email to Clinton on the same day, Clinton's legal counsel Mills wrote, on Michael Savage, Joan wanted everyone to clearly understand before any further discussion occurred with UK that Savage's exclusion should also have occurred under our legal regime. Listen to this. Savage's exclusion could also have occurred under our own legal regime. So to the extent we want to suggest to UK that his exclusion on free speech grounds is inappropriate or anything of that, that we should understand we may appear slightly hypocritical given our legal regime and actions. Do you know what that means? This touches our First Amendment, and it occurs in writing from Hillary Clinton, from Mills, from Jacob Sullivan, where they say the UK ban against Savage could happen in the U.S. on the same grounds. Do you know that not one television show will book me for this story? None of them will have me speak about this issue. I only have this radio show. For how long, I don't know. I don't know how long this will be allowed. I have no idea. But I thank the people who give me this ability to get the truth out, because what I am saying to you today has deep ramifications for everyone in the news business, everyone in the commentary business, everyone in the media business will be affected by the outcome of this particular case. It's bigger than you may think. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than one man. It's bigger than the First Amendment itself. I will read you the letter that my attorney wrote. I was banned by the government's top Homeland Security official in 2009, along with terrorists and neo-Nazi murderers, on the pretext that my views might provoke violence. Now, the interesting thing is, my show was not even heard in England. Then Home Secretary Jackie Smith, an altogether unsavory individual, said she decided to publicize the list of 16 people banned since October to show the type of behavior Britain will not tolerate. Isn't that interesting? Britain will not tolerate such behavior as mine? It isn't even behavior, it's speech. You mean, but she tolerates Muslims who say Sharia law, kill the queen, will take over the government, that she tolerates? It's pure hypocrisy and cowardice in England, but we've expected that from Britain under the latest round of rulers. Did you expect that in your own nation? I am a talk show host who does not advocate violence, or I wouldn't be on the radio. I simply advocate patriotic traditional values, borders, language, culture, and yet I'm banned from England. I'm lumped in with Hamas leader Yunus al-Astal, former Ku Klux Klan Grand Wizard Stephen Donald Black, neo-Nazi Eric Galib, radical American pastor Fred Phelps. I'm on that list. Others on the list are Russian skinhead leaders. Islamic leader Wagdi Abd al-Hamid Mohammed Ghanim, Abdullah Qadri al-Akhdal, Safwat Hijazi, Amir Siddiq, Abdul al-Moussa, Samir al-Kunta, and Nasser Javed. I'm on their list. How could a nation put me on a list and leave hate preachers in England who say that we're going to kill all of you? We're going to convert all of you to Islam. How is it possible that those hate preachers can't be deported from Britain, but I can be banned from Britain? People who advocate actual murder cannot be deported from Britain? I'll be right back.
Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Regret it. The folks at Breitbart, the writer is Colin Medine. He's a great writer. But it was Alex Marlow who put it up. And their headline is very interesting. It says, "Make England savage again." Make England savage again. Petition calls for radio legend to be unbanned from UK. And it's a repeat of the other story, but it's interesting how they wrote it. They said, Friday will mark a Cinco de Mayo celebration for many Americans. But for fans of Michael Savage, the 5th of May is the anniversary of a darker event, the banning of Savage from the United Kingdom. On the 8th year of Savage's ban from Britain, WorldNet Daily has launched a petition calling on President Trump to demand Britain remove Savage from its travel ban list. And they cite parts of the petition. And they explain why. Because I was put on the list as a sacrificial lamb to balance out the list of Muslim extremists and Ku Klux Klan members. It says, comparing Michael Savage to other members of the Home Office list makes the sharp divide clearer. Take, for example, Wagdi Abd el-Hamid Mohammed Ghonim, who refers to Osama bin Laden as a martyr hero mujahid and denounces Western intervention against ISIS as a crusade. That is a far cry from the content of Michael Savage's daily radio show and best-selling books. Michael Savage believes Donald Trump will be sympathetic to his case. After all, a petition was signed to ban Trump himself from entering the United Kingdom. Other conservatives and opponents of Islamic extremism have since also been banned entry. But Savage was specifically named as part of the notorious group of 16 people released May 5th, 2009. Breitbart adds this: the UK might see things differently now as well. A lot has changed in the last 8 years. The famous bust of Winston Churchill has been restored to the Oval Office. Wow. And the British people voted to leave the European Union. The news cycle from England is dominated by terror attacks and terror arrests on a nearly daily basis, which must leave the average Brit receptive to Savage's message of borders, language, and culture. Read the petition in full here and sign it if you agree that Michael Savage should no longer be banned from Britain, and you can do that. Once again, let's say I get X number of signatures. I don't know what the number will be. It doesn't really matter. I don't care if 5,000 people sign it. What if 100,000 sign it or 1 million? What's the difference how many sign it? The issue is whether President Trump will demand that Britain remove my name from its travel ban list.
Savage.
Most of us in America live with our heads up our sand. And the fact of the matter is the media is doing it to us on purpose. The government media complex wants to make sure you're as dumb and as anxious as possible. There is no preparation for any such eventuality in this nation. Any civilization that truly thought of itself as something of value would have by now provided underground shelters for most of its civilians in major cities. We have no underground shelters in this country. Did you hear what I just said to you? Other major powers have underground shelters for their populations in major cities. The monsters who run this nation of ours, whether it had been Democrat or Republican, it makes no difference. The true powers care nothing about us. Zero about us. Which is why they flooded our streets with drugs and our shores with illegal immigrants, many of whom are either of no value whatsoever to the society and pure wastrels to suck the welfare and medical systems dry, or worse yet. You can say that the country is in an emergency situation. I mean, you could worry about this, or you can do nothing about it. You can put your head in the sand. You could watch television. You can go to the movies. You could keep your life going the way it is. You could celebrate July 4th, whatever you want to do. But if the Japanese are telling their civilians to get ready, Japanese told us citizens they'll likely only have a 10-minute warning of a pending nuclear strike against them. Why have we not been told to prepare in some way? They've not even told us to get a flashlight or an extra bag of food. No emergency food. No extra water. No flashlights. No guns. No ammunition. Nothing. Just leave it to ABC, CBS, and NBC to tell you what to do. Leave it to Rupert Murdoch. Leave it to Rupert Murdoch to keep rolling in gold and to keep you deceived as to what's really going on. My friends, you may take this with a grain of salt, as I hope you will. On the other hand, a wise person would prepare for the possibility of war that affects our electrical grid. I mean, you do know what one nuclear strike against some satellites would do, a so-called EMT blast, don't you? We'd be living in a buggy whip age. That'll be good for the folks in Western Pennsylvania, but most of us don't live in the buggy whip era. Should any preparations be made? I mean, are we talking about reality here, or do you want to put your head in the sand? You want to just watch stupid clowns in the media perform for you, letting you think that their altered reality based upon drugs is reality? You do know that almost everyone in Hollywood is a stoner, that they're stoned all the time, and the people who run them are even more sick than they are, and you want to now focus on those stoners and think that reality is your reality, the reality of the world? Or do you want to do something that's real? Well, okay, I'm a big shot. I'm just a talk show host. But I have some ideas of what you can do to prepare. Let's say let's say there is no war coming. Would it hurt for you to have extra dry food, for example, even in an apartment? Emergency food, canned food, dried food, survival food. How about water? How about a flashlight? How about gold coins? This is not a pitch, but my number one sponsor for these 16 years has been Swiss America. Why don't you buy gold coins as a hedge against? Say, well, what am I going to do with gold coins? I don't know. What are you going to use, paper money if something goes wrong? People are preparing, you know. In fact, some of the richest people on earth have shelters and underground cities. You have nothing, though. The 400 mandarins in our government, the 400 mandarins from Dianne Feinstein down, all of those mandarins and all of their aides will be ushered to an underground city somewhere outside of the nation's capital if, God forbid, the worst should happen. There's a whole underground city for them. They took billions of dollars of our hard-earned money and built themselves an underground safety net while leaving us with nothing. You're going to run into the subway? Let's say you live in New York. Where are you going to hide, in the New York subway? I wouldn't go in the subway if there wasn't a war. You risk being thrown on the third rail with the so-called teens who are now acting out and who are now out of control. War and rumors of war, said Matthew 24. Matthew 24 says there will be wars and rumors of war, for nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and in various places there will be famines and earthquakes. Christ makes it very clear that war will play a significant role in the last 7 years prior to his return. Laugh if you will. Be like you're from San Francisco. Be like your Mark Zuckerberg. Just roll in the gold coins. Just roll in the gold coins and care nothing about the future of your nation. Do we know if there will be a war? There's no doubt that there will be a war. In fact, there's a war right now. In fact, there are several wars right now. In fact, there are wars all over the globe right now. Only it has escalated right now. Why has it escalated right now? Now, on one hand, you could say it's escalated not because Trump is a warmonger, but because he's finally stood up to our enemies. I believe that is true. Somebody had to stand up to the maniac in North Korea. And by raising our military posture, we are fearing that fat lunatic maniac in North Korea is liable to launch a nuke either at Japan or Hawaii or the west coast of the United States. Somebody had to stand up to him. But what about Afghanistan? Why are we sending 5,000 or 25,000 more troops to Afghanistan? Why don't we just pull everyone out of Afghanistan? What are we doing there? Can anyone listening to this program, The Savage Nation, the #1 rated radio show on WABC in New York, the #1 streaming radio show in the world in talk radio, the author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, Trump's War, is asking you a question. What the hell are we doing in Afghanistan? Why are we in Afghanistan? Answer that question. Why is Trump sending 5,000 more troops to Afghanistan? Bizarre question. I have no idea what the heck we're doing there. I have no idea what we are doing there. 1,000 U.S. troops to Australia. Large fleet of military aircraft to Australia. Wow. It's interesting. All of a sudden, the Aussies are back. There we go again. Crocodile Dundee is back. So we, the citizens, will be the last to know, according to this group Anonymous, the hacktivist group. We will be the last to know. What are the Chinese doing? What are the Japanese doing? And why is President Trump reaching out to a kind of rogue president like Rodrigo Duterte of the Philippines? Why is he reaching out to him? You have to wonder about that. But even Duterte has advised Trump to back away from Kim Jong-un. Did you hear this? Now, the group called Anonymous says this at the end of their video. The video ends with this. Prepare for what comes next, they say. We are Anonymous. We are Legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. I don't know who Anonymous is. but I hope they don't dislike me. Who are they? Who are these people? Does anyone know who Anonymous is and why they're setting out this signal? What about going to Afghanistan? Do you support Trump going into Afghanistan? What do you think? I have some great callers. Don't think I'm groping here. Board is full. I'm at San Francisco's KSFO radio station. I haven't been here in months. I should be here more often. But the fact of the matter is, what world are we actually living in? We're living in an alternate universe where we think everything will be like it has been. Everything will be like it was for our parents. Everything will be just the way it is. Children selling lemonade in the white suburbs, putting your little girls out there with a table and lemonade and skimpy outfits, because there's nothing to worry about. Just let 7, 8-year-old girls sit with little skimpy outfits selling lemonade on a corner, because it's Norman Rockwell time. But when I wake up and I see that Trump's generals want more war, not less war. Now, you may say, wait a minute now, hold on. They're not starting the war, but the generals want to send 5,000 more troops in the fight. Now, it's true Obama sent 20,000 more. No one noticed that because he, after all, said he was a man of peace. He won a Nobel Prize when he sneezed. So there's a problem over there, and the generals are sending 5,000 more troops. So they say 5, it's probably 15. And then we read that a group called Anonymous, the infamous hacktivist group, has just released a chilling new video urging people across the globe to prepare for World War III. They say U.S. and North Korea continue to move strategic pieces into place for battle. The group says in this ominous 6-minute clip posted on YouTube over the weekend, all the signs of a looming war in the Korean Peninsula are surfacing. But President Trump tested Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missiles last week, I believe off the coast of California. Then there was a number of recent warnings from Japanese officials to their own citizens, telling them to make preparations for a possible nuclear attack. I mean, I can say to you, do you think this or do you think that? You don't know what to think. Meanwhile, China's urged its citizens in North Korea, Chinese citizens in North Korea, known as the Hermit Kingdom, to come home. Well, the group Anonymous says this is a real war with real global consequences, with 3 superpowers drawn into the mix. Other nations will be coerced into choosing sides. So what do the chess pieces look like so far? Trump weighs sending as many as 5,000 more troops to Afghanistan. You know, we've had 15 years of men fighting and dying in Afghanistan. We've spent trillions of dollars. Thousands of men have died. And now Trump's war machine wants us to ramp up fighting in Afghanistan in order to achieve what the British and Russians failed to do, which is tame the monstrosity known as Afghanistan. Remember what happened to the British in Afghanistan. They were broken in Afghanistan. And remember what happened to the Russians in Afghanistan. It is true the Russians were defeated largely with American help on the other side. We gave them the Stinger missiles to shoot down their helicopters. I support Trump. I'll pass the litmus test again on to you. But the president doesn't seem to be in control of the military-industrial complex. If war is increased in Afghanistan, my opinion, you can call me a defeatist if you want and recommend that I be tried for defeatism. If war is increased in Afghanistan, it will be a disaster for our men and women in uniform because they'll be fighting a losing war. They cannot win it. You're not going to defeat a people living in another millennia, let alone another century. And by the way, if we are to believe that the Russians are supplying weapons to the Taliban, we will be on the other side of what the Russians faced in the 1980s, except for one big difference. We will be the idiots watching our helicopters go down, while the Kremlin will be supplying the missiles to shoot them down. I'll be right back.
Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. 9. What is this, another Cold War? Is it a hot war? Is it a Cold War about to become a hot war? Is it war and rumors of wars? Actually, as Matthew wrote, it was not war and rumors of wars. He wrote in the Bible, for those of you who are into that, Matthew wrote in the Bible, the Christian Bible, there will be, quote, wars and rumors of wars. For nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. And in various places there will be famines and earthquakes. Now, many of you are preppers who listen to talk radio. I'm aware of that. Many of you are cynics. I'm aware of that. Many of you don't know what to think. I'm aware of that. But there's a militant posturing going on around the world that's quite worrisome right now. You can blame it all you want on Trump, but frankly, he's a reaction to the crusade that the Islamics are involved in. There is an Islamic crusade going on around the world. Whether you call it Wahhabism, Taliban, ISIS, it's a crusade. It's not a reaction to the West. It is they wanting to convert the Westerners to their 7th century vision of Islam. Many of the progressive women are so dumb. They have no idea the world that they're living in, nor the world they're trying to drag us in. Meanwhile, our life goes on. And we wake up this morning and this hacktivist group, Anonymous, says, well, get ready for World War III. It's coming. I don't know who Anonymous is. Robert, who is Anonymous? Does anyone? Of course, we knew they wouldn't be anonymous. But what have they done in the past that turned out to be true? Robert, Jim, anyone know? Have they predicted anything that was true? I don't know. I guess so. I guess they have. They probably live right here in the San Francisco area. I probably passed a few of them this morning on the way to the radio station. The fact that I just got the greasy Chinese food delivered. And for all I know, they were working in the back of the kitchen. I don't know. Tasted extra good today. I don't know what they put in it. But Trump's generals are the question. Are they doing the right thing after 15 years of fighting and trillions of dollars and thousands of lives in the toilet in Afghanistan? Trump's generals now want us in there in greater numbers. And what are we going to achieve? The British were broken in Afghanistan. Read the history of Britain and Afghanistan. The Russians, you remember what happened to them? The sad pictures of the Russian helicopters going down with those handsome young men paraded by these Stone Age men. Remember those pictures? And what do you think is liable to happen when we go in there in greater numbers? You know, I played Apocalypse Now. I saw reams of helicopters in my head. Anyway, here we are. But, you know, the show will come to an end. The lights will go out. The Klieg lights of the studio, so to speak. I put the old leather hat on, put the coat on, hoof it out of here into the garage. And then what? There's the same world that I left behind. It's not this imaginary world of horror. It's not this imaginary world of war. It's not this imaginary war of invasion. No, it's the real world of San Francisco, which is filled with love and compassion, where bands of minority youths are attacking white people with impunity and not getting arrested. But that's not really happening. I mean, it is happening to those who get beaten up, but it's not really happening to you because you didn't read it in the newspaper. Over here in the San Francisco area, wherever you turn, there are gangs of minority youths rampaging out of control. And the vermin in the media, the Salenterists in the media, the liars in the fake media, always cover it up. You say, well, what can they do about it? How are you going to catch the kids who did it unless you show their pictures on the security tape? Let's start with arresting them. Still yet not shown by any newspaper to protect their identities because they're underage? Nonsense, they're underage. You commit a crime like this, you have no such protections. I want to see the pictures of that mob.
Savage. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
Now, they claim that the socialized medicine called Obamacare has been repealed. I never talked about it. I talk about health, not health care. There is probably nothing more boring to me than listening to people complain about their problems and to talk about Obamacare. I don't know how anyone can do that with an IQ above 17. But since I have an IQ a little bit above 17, I think I'll talk about it today because it's worth talking about. And the biggest issue is the pre-existing conditions. Are you ready for this? Do you know which pre-existing conditions are now covered under communist Obamacare? Now, here's a guy who got a $70 million book advance. He gets $400,000 a speech, and he makes believe he cares about the people. He is Maduro of the North. He is Chavez of the North. He is Castro of the North. A phony through and through. But the liars in the fake media never, ever called him out on what he did to this country. Do you know what pre-existing conditions are now covered by Commie-Care? Do you know? And now I'll ask you a bigger question. Should pre-existing conditions be paid for under the new ACHA? Yes or no? Should the pre-existing conditions that are now covered under Commie-Care continue to be paid for by Trump Care? Is it called Trump Care yet? We'll call it Trump Care. Yeah, let's call it Trump Care. Even if it's been used, it's a good one. It went from this care to that care, so now it's Trump Care. So I'll ask you, the audience, should pre-existing conditions be paid for under the new Health Care Act? Do you know which pre-existing conditions are now covered? I do. You know, there used to be a phrase that when a dictator came along or a demagogue, he would promise a chicken in every pot. That was during the Great Depression when people were really starving, as opposed to now when they're fat slobs marching around America like dead blimps. When people were starving during the Great Depression, lying politicians came along and promised a chicken in every pot. And then a talk show host came along and promised pot in every chicken. That, of course, was just passed. Now the same talk show host is coming along and saying a sickness for every pothead, or a sickness in every pot is being offered by Trump Care. Anyway, we're asking you, should pre-existing conditions be covered in Trump Care? Do you know what is covered now in Commie-Care, in Phony Care? Because I do. I actually did the homework for you. I figured if I'm going to talk about it, I may as well give you something you haven't heard on any other shows. So far as I know, everyone speaks in generalities. They speak about insurance. Do they actually talk about what the pre-existing conditions are? I wouldn't know. I don't have the time to know. But I do know what the pre-existing conditions are. Why should I pay for someone else's problems is what I want to know. No one said a person who's in a crisis shouldn't be cared for. They're already cared for in any emergency room in America. Let me ask you something. Should acne be considered a pre-existing condition? Well, it is. It's on the list. It's now treatable under Obamacare. Did you know that? Should acne be considered a pre-existing condition? Sherrod Brown wrote it into the Obamacare bill. Should anxiety be considered a pre-existing condition? Should that be treatable by the federal government with my paying for it or you paying for it? Do you have any idea that everyone on earth suffers anxiety, that that's part of life? That that's one of the greatest myths in the history of the world, to lead an anxiety-free life? Do you know anybody who leads an anxiety-free life? That doesn't mean anything, anxiety. Do you know anyone who doesn't have anxiety? All right, so let's take another pre-existing condition. Do you think somebody with a so-called eating disorder should be covered by the federal government? Should somebody who says they have heartburn be able to go to any number of doctors that they want to have their heartburn treated? Or should they go get a mint in a drugstore like everyone else with heartburn? How about panic disorder? Someone has panic disorder, now they can go get any number of doctors that they want. I should pay for that? How about seasonal affective disorder, which is currently covered under Obamacare, SAD? When there's not enough sunlight, oh, I don't feel good. There's not enough light. I have seasonal affective disorder. Well, under Obamacare, you can go to any number of doctors you want and not pay a dime. Now, what kind of country can survive this nonsense? What I'm saying to you is, no, you can't cover every disorder, nor should you cover every disorder. In fact, to cover every disorder is the end of America as we know it. Now, the only question is this. Trump Care. Do we actually know which of these pre-existing conditions have been eliminated? We don't know. Do you know that the Republicans added $8 billion for pre-existing conditions? I believe nothing has been taken off the list. acne, ADD, anxiety, so-called bipolar disorder, eating disorder, heartburn. Listen to this one, mental health issues. Now, what does that mean? 99% of the people in Manhattan have mental health disorders, including, I would think, Woody Allen, I would guess, since his movies were about that. Should we pay for Woody Allen's psychiatric care for the next number of years? Have you signed my petition to get Trump to lobby England to get my name off the list? Yes or no? Well, don't call me on that. I don't care. I mean, I'd like you to sign it. I got an email back from Sean Spicer on this. Oh, yeah. I sent them the petition out of courtesy. And I said, Mr. Spicer, I think you should see this petition, which will be going to the president. I said, hi, Sean, please read this petition. It will be presented to President Trump. Hope he can support this. Congressman Culberson will be running this through Congress for me. He answered me, and he said, thanks for sending. I'm out for a few hours. We'll get back to you once I get back, Sean Spicer. So I'm hopeful that there'll be at least a dignified response from the White House. They didn't ignore me, which is very good to know. Will they support me? I don't know. The anniversary of this horrendous crime against my reputation. Everyone in the media should be behind me. It's interesting at the time, even the ACLU they meekly said something on my behalf. But I'm asking you this. If you sign this petition, which I hope you will do, and we send it to Donald Trump, you can go to michaelsavage.com to sign the petition urging President Trump to demand Britain remove Michael Savage from its travel ban. You know, there's something going on in the radio business that nobody knows or will tell you about. There has been a huge loss of interest in politics in the last few weeks. I've noticed it, and I'm very intuitive, and I've been in the business for many years. It's either because Donald Trump has, let us say, stepped aside from the conservative messaging, or because people don't care anymore, or they feel the election is over. Something's going on, and I don't know what it is. But I want to ask you, do you think that when we present the petition to Donald Trump, whatever the number is, 10,000 at the time, 20, 100, do you think Donald Trump will go to bat for me, yes or no? I know the RNC wouldn't lift a finger if one of us was threatened with a guillotine in France. If one of us were to be detained in France and threatened with the guillotine, they wouldn't step in. I understand who these turncoat Republican check-pant country club cowards are. I've always hated them. They've always turned my stomach. I never liked them. I hated them from the day I began in radio. I've never been a Republican. I've always been an independent. So don't tell me about Republicans. I know what the Republican Party stands for. This is nothing new to me. Okay, that's not the issue. Donald Trump right now has a loss of credibility with his base. That's a statement that's whole and unto itself. People do not know where he stands on his original messaging. Wouldn't this send a message to his base that he still does care about them? I want to go to another question about the Queen, the royal family. To me, they're a bunch of parasites. Now, I know maybe I just dug my own hole a little deeper. How in the world can anyone listening to this show tell me that people who don't work for a living and live like they do are not parasitic on the British people? Where does the money come from? Why in the world would the British people maintain a royal family? We're not living in the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, 1800s. I believe this whole concept of a royal family is absurd in an age when people are struggling as they are, whether it be in Britain or anywhere else. It's an anachronism. I think it's time to talk about it. But then again, we're Americans. We don't have a royalist tradition. In fact, our revolution was to reject royalty. Do you know that? Does anyone in the media remember all of the bootlickers in the media who kissed the royal family's feet when they come here? Prince this, Prince that, Princess this. You know, I was raised to hate royal families by my father. I don't know whether I know he was not, let's put it this way, I don't know what his politics were. He was a liberal for sure because he was an immigrant and very poor, and he always thought that the rich hated the poor, and the rich would screw the poor any way they could. So I was raised on that mentality. It really was true, by the way. Probably still is true, incidentally. And he said to me, he saved most of his worst vitriol for Prince Charles, who was a little kid at the time. He said that big-eared, inbred, good-for-nothing, does nothing. You know, he really hated these people because they were parasites, and he was a hard worker. And to him, hard work was a sign of manhood. And being a lazy bum who sat around doing that. And by the way, look at Prince Charles. Not only is he a lazy individual, all he does is talk about things like global warming and sit on the heaths painting pictures. And so, you know, ask yourself, all those castles, all of that, those priceless antiques, it's the same as the Pope. What do we need a Pope for in this day and age? It's from an age of a papal age when they were like kings, and they ruled as kings with their own armies, launching wars against people who didn't submit to the Catholic Church. Again, these are things that in our age, where there is such vast poverty across the globe, you know, you think about it, and look who talks against poverty the most, the Pope. Doesn't give up one painting in the Vatican. And look who talks about global warming. I mean, Prince Charles. It's so absurd, the whole thing. But I understand this is not a popular statement to make, especially when I'm now appealing to have my name removed from the travel ban list. But what does one thing have to do with the other? And by the way, when this happened way back when, the British people were by and large in every poll on my side. That was before the major Muslim invasion of today. It was already a minor invasion. Now it's a major invasion. So we have a choice in this country about this, you know. And we're going to have to think about, you know. I'll be right back.
Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. And again, I want to talk about which pre-existing conditions are covered. You're never going to believe it. To cover all of the pre-existing conditions, as CommonCare now does, is not health care at all. This is what demagoguery is. This is what the Sherrod Brown, Dianne Feinstein, Nancy Pelosi demagogues do, is they do things without any thought. You know, I'm a former social worker. I'm actually a very compassionate individual. I give money to save elephants. I give money to save animals. I let bugs fly out of the window. I pull screens out to let moths fly out. So I'm a very compassionate person. But giving everybody everything is not compassion. It's demagoguery. It leads to the total collapse of a society. It's what lazy, evil demagogues like Sherrod Brown and all of the other Democrat lying socialist pigs from hell give to the people. They're not compassionate. What they're doing is throwing away money from the middle class to buy votes. It's sickening. It is simply disgusting. I'm for compassion, but I'm not for a socialist welfare state because of what it does to a society. Look no further than what Chavez did to the once thriving, beautiful, beautiful South American nation of Argentina. And take a look at what the pig running Argentina is doing now. He's rewriting the Constitution so he can stay in office forever. The people are starving. You can't blame the gringos for that. You can blame the Antifa people for wanting to bring that to America. And now you understand why they're so deadly. What that pig did in Argentina, what that pig did to, and you name the socialist country, and what those pigs have done to their nations is what those people who put the masks over their face want to do to your nation. And they're only a different level of degree away from the Democrats who have paid for every kind of condition you can imagine. This is not medical care. This is not compassion. And I will say it again, what they wrote into the Health Care Act under the pig called Obama, the biggest lying pig in the history of the American presidency, who got away with murder because of a racial issue. Let's stop lying to each other about how he got away with it. He was not a normal liberal Democrat. He used his race as a weapon. In fact, there's a new biography coming out, if you think I'm making this up, from a woman who dated him who was white, who he was in love with, after he came out of Occidental College, and he said, I'm not going to marry her. It would be a death for my career. So I'm going to identify only with the African-American side of my lineage. He is an evil Machiavellian man. A $70 million book advance, a $400,000 speech to Wall Street, and you tell me that man cares about the people? He is a classic demagogue. Okay, so let's go back to what the classic demagogue Barack Obama did. What did they write into the bill? What pre-existing conditions are covered by you, the middle-class voter who may have some conditions or may have very few health conditions, or you young people who are being forced to pay for conditions that you'll never believe were written in here? And the question is, will this Republican revision change anything? Well, certain things have changed. Some of it's very bad. It will allow insurers to charge higher premiums to those in their 50s and early 60s compared to younger consumers. So, in other words, the most productive element of society, those who have paid taxes all their lives, those who have worked hard all their lives, are going to now be paying more. You didn't know any of this. The GOP stabbed you in the back. You didn't know any of that, did you? Some of it is good. Some of it's horrible. The new bill doesn't touch another beloved piece of Commie-Care, letting children stay on their parents' insurance plans until the age of 26. Why not make it until the age of 56 if you have a drug addict at home or a fat slob who won't go to work? Just put them on Obamacare. Get them a free phone. What more do they need? All they need is condoms and a telephone and an allowance from their parents. What more do they need in America? Just give them free drugs to go with it. But there's some good things in it. GOP revision would eliminate Obamacare taxes and gets rid of the individual mandate imposed by Commie-Care.
Savage.
So Ringling Brothers, the greatest show on earth, finished, kaput. No more. End of a unique way of life for the world, America. The real story that you're not talking about in the newspapers is this. Suspect to cops. I killed 2 roommates for disrespecting my Muslim faith. He's a former Nazi, an American Nazi who became a Muslim. Hello? I wonder how that works. How did a man who was formerly a Nazi become a Muslim? Why? What is the connection there? Oh, there is none? Okay. Killed 2 roommates because they don't like Muslims. All right, whatever. Dock officials blame parents of girl dragged in water by sea lion. You've all seen that one. Did you see the sea lion thing on TV? The girl gets pulled in by... People are stupid. They think that wild animals are pets. They talk to it like, oh, honey, look, here's a piece of bread. That's like going into a gorilla cage and think it's just a monkey. Did you see the video of the incident when the girl sits down with the little white dress and a 1,000-pound sea lion rips her into the water? What struck me most about it is the Chinese guy who jumped in the water and saved her. He didn't even scream like, oh my God, or call 911. This Chinese guy is some hero. I don't know who he is. Like Bruce Lee. Like a 135-pound tourist leaps in. Was it his daughter or not? I don't think, but she gets pulled in by a sea lion. No, there's no blood on her, thank God. And who is this hero? This guy is a hero. Unbelievable to me. Massive marine animal snaps at the pig-tailed tot, drags her into the water by her dress, and he jumps in and saves her. That's astounding. These are wild animals. You know, many years ago during the hippie era, I knew a stoner who was on LSD who went into the gorilla cage at the Honolulu Zoo because she thought she could talk to gorillas. She got mauled to death. You know how many sick people there are out there who don't know what they're talking about? And now Trump's Russian connection and other crimes. I know you're not going to like this, but here we go on the Savage Nation. Do you remember when Donald Trump was business partners with the Russian government and his company got $53 million from the Russian government investment fund called Rusnano that was started by Vladimir Putin and is referred to as Putin's child? Oh, wait, that wasn't Trump. It was John Podesta. Sorry. Remember when Donald Trump received $500,000 for a speech in Moscow and paid for by Renaissance Capital, a company tied to Russian intelligence agencies? Oh, wait, that wasn't Donald Trump. That was Bill Clinton. Remember when Donald Trump approved the sale of 20% of U.S. uranium to the Russians while he was Secretary of State, which gave control of it to Rosatom, the Russian State Atomic Energy Corporation? Oh, wait, that wasn't Trump. That was Hillary Clinton. Remember when Donald Trump lied about that and said he wasn't a part of approving the deal that gave the Russians 1/5 of our uranium stores? But then his emails were leaked showing he did lie about it. Oh, wait. That was Hillary Clinton and John Podesta. Remember when Donald Trump got $145 million from shareholders of the uranium company sold to the Russians? Oh, wait. That wasn't Donald Trump. That was Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation. You Trump bashers, pay attention. Remember when Donald Trump accepted millions in donations from Russian oligarchs? Like the chairman of a company that's part of the Russian nuclear research cluster, the wife of the mayor of Moscow and a close pal of Putin? Oh, wait, that was the Clinton Foundation. And remember when Donald Trump failed to disclose all those donations before becoming the Secretary of State and was only found out when a journalist went through Canadian tax records? Oh, wait, that was Hillary Clinton. So all you Trump bashers, wake up before it's too late. You've lost your credibility before you woke up today. I don't think I'm going to talk much about Melania in the Middle East because she is so gracious. She makes me proud to be an American just to watch her grace walk majestically amongst the Arabs who are so in love with her they don't know what to do. And one thing about the Arabs you got to understand is they have very good taste in women. No, she's a great first lady, very elegant, and she's certainly knocking it out of the park. We got a winner, by the way, on who said courage is doing what you are afraid to do. Yes, it was the World War I ace, Eddie Rickenbacker, who was an automobile racer, a famous one, before he went into World War I and became an aviation ace, shooting down more German planes than anyone else in the U.S. Air Force. And he said, courage is doing what you are afraid to do. That struck me as so incredibly inspiring, because many of us have fears. Well, all of us have fears is the point, but many of us have learned to overcome our fears, and the rest of us have the fears and think we're cowards. Did you hear? In other words, we have fears and we are intimidated by our fears, and it thinks that it makes us cowardly to have fears. But all people have fears. Some people overcome them and they become courageous, and that could go from the small to the large. Whether you're intimidated to make a dinner party, but you say, I don't have the skills, or enlist in the military and take on the worst vermin the planet has seen since Hitler. It ranges all the way up and down the line. Or you say, I would like to have children, but I don't have the courage to have children. I'm afraid that I wouldn't be a good father or a good mother. Courage is doing what you are afraid to do. I remember that very well from my childhood, not so much today. At this point, I'm more reactive than I am contemplative about things of that nature. But the thing is that when I was growing up, I had friends who I thought were much more courageous than me. And one of them once said to me, do you think I'm not afraid? He said, I just overcome the fear and do it. I also heard that from a world-famous comedian when I was young. When I went up to him, I won't mention his name because his name isn't that important, even though he really is famous and very talented, even though he's a political schmendrick. I said to him, how do you get up in front of that crowd? Aren't you afraid? He said, of course I am. He said, you just get up and do it. This should encourage all of you out there who want to do something but are afraid to do it. You get it? We have more news for you. The country's out of control. Who are you going to blame? The idiots in the media? 6 things to watch in Trump's budget. Is Melania swatting the president's hand away? That's what passes for journalism? A freak show had more interest for me than the freaks in the news business today. That's what they got nothing else to write about. Did you hear this story? You want to hear irony? IndyCar drivers, Scott Dixon, and retired racer Dario Franchitti are driving through a Taco Bell at 10 o'clock at night in Indianapolis, and they're held up at gunpoint. You hear this? Are you listening to this? Their wife is in the car, one of the wives, in Indianapolis, at a drive-thru. Look at the country we're living in. Police say they arrested 2 teens, age 14 and 15, in connection with the robbery of credit cards and other personal valuables from Dixon, his wife, and Franchitti. Both teens were charged with robbery. Maybe they go to work for the Clinton Foundation. And the 15-year-old was charged with resisting law enforcement. Oh, really? While they were ordering with their window down at Taco Bell, 2 guys, no picture of them, because they're juveniles or teens, approached at gunpoint, held a gun at Dixon's head. Can you imagine ordering a taco and having a gun put to your head? Can you believe this? 4-time IndyCar Series champion. Why are IndyCar drivers going to Taco Bell to begin with? What, do you need an armored car now to go into Taco Bell in Indianapolis? I guess the police are intimidated to doing their job after the war on police under Hussein. Remember I told you San Francisco's living through a horrible crime wave? Well, there was just a suspected kidnapping of a 3-year-old child at the Ferry Building right next to my favorite bread place. And you know who did it? Mother and child are visiting from out of town, Missouri. A 3-year-old boy is snatched right out of his mother's arms by a homeless piece of garbage and runs away. The homeless piece of garbage was a woman in her 30s. And the episode happens this morning at 9:30. The transient woman, now these people are so dangerous. If you had any idea that don't get me started on the homeless. They're not homeless. They're not homeless. This is not the right word for them. And we'll leave it at that. So the homeless woman, transient, the sicko, comes up to the mother and son and exchanges words with them. Then the, quote, stranger grabs the boy. The mother fights with her. 2 brave employees from the nearby Golden Gate Meat Company race over and hold the woman down, which I'm surprised at in San Francisco that they wouldn't have already attacked the mother. Because, you know, the homeless people here are the sacred cows. You understand that. You ask anyone from out of town, this city stinks to high heaven. Feces, urine, violence everywhere you turn. And they're violent, most of them. It was just strange, said Steve Bourne, an employee at a vegan donut shop, who witnessed the attempted abduction and subsequent takedown. The homeless woman just came up and grabbed a baby. So here's the vegan donut shop guy, doesn't do anything, but the meat company people race over and hold the woman down. You hear? Look at the difference right here. Right here you see the whole difference. Vegan donut shop man. He sees the abduction and does nothing. He says it's weird. The other ones from the meat company who have some food in them from the meat company run over and hold down the garbage. But you see, in this sick city, instead of putting this woman away for attempting a kidnapping, they'll tell us to have sympathy for her. You talk about a freak show? Just come to San Francisco anytime you want. Try to enjoy a meal down in that area by Ferry Plaza and see what goes on there with the skateboarded potheads, the drug addicts that almost run you down, the bicyclists almost kill you, the needles, the filth. Yeah, okay, you don't need a freak show anymore. What a country we're living in. Why don't they just round up the homeless, give them the care that they need, put them in work camps, force them to work for the money that they use for drugs? Answer, because then there'd be no money for drugs and it wouldn't filter up the ladder. That's all. Any other questions? Big customers for the drug trade. You don't want that to come to an end. So, and there's your answer. There's an answer to everything. An answer to everything. Everything's upside down in San Francisco. I'll be right back.
Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Balls in the air, and there's a lot of topics. Now they're making a big deal. Trump goes triumphantly to Saudi Arabia. Israel wows them. Melania wows them. So what do the schmucks in the media do? Melania does not really want to hold Donald's hand. That's their big news story. Can you figure this one out? Why that's such a big deal? They get off Air Force One, fly in from Riyadh. They're landing now in Tel Aviv. Come down on the plane, and she slaps his hand away after the couple touches down in Israel. Why is that such a big deal? He was reaching out to touch her, and she wasn't in the mood. She's a woman. It's not like she's mad at him. I see this a different way. Why do they have to do a thing like this and make this the whole... This now is bigger than his triumphant tour of Saudi Arabia. You hear this? Because of the schmendricks in the media. Video shows that Donald reaching for Melania's hand as they walked along the tarmac after disembarking from AF-1 as they land in Tel Aviv. Melania is dressed in sunglasses and a sharp white pencil skirt and blazer, and she can be seen just gently swatting his hand away. So what is the big deal there? Probably had a better time in Saudi Arabia than he's going to have in Israel with the Meshuggahs over in Israel right now. Oh, you can't believe the stuff they're writing about him before he got there. Calling him every name under the sun. They cooled to him already in Israel. Israelis worry Trump's changing stand looks more and more like Obama's. All right, then they got all the kvetches in Israel. They don't like anybody in Israel. They don't like themselves. Every day they wake up with like dyspepsia and complaining about something. So now they don't like Trump that much. So that's all. He's like any politician said, Shlamit Levran, an art student at Hebrew U. They say one thing, and then after they're elected, they do another. I see no difference. Trump and Obama, they want the same thing, said Eli Adler, a 60-year-old shopkeeper in downtown Jerusalem. They just serve it up in a different dish. You know, the cynicism, by the way, has more than a tinge of truth in it. Adler says he doesn't think Trump and his deal-maker reputation will prove any more effective than Obama was in bringing a resolution to the decades-long Israeli-Palestinian standoff. Decades long? It's biblical. You know, it's like Cain and Abel. Nothing's going to happen over there. If you raise your children to kill Jews, what do you want to have? Give them a state next to you so they can kill your children? What do you want the Israelis to do? Okay, I know. They stole the land. That's coming now from the leftists. Why don't you give your house away to a Native American? Go out and look for a Native American over there in Berkeley and give your house away to someone whose land that you stole it from. I loved it. Big to tell the Jews what to do with their life. All right, whatever. So he's there now. Then what? Then he goes on to the Pope. Then he goes on to Sicily. That's the one part I miss. I wish I was. Is the state dinner in Sicily. That's the one thing, is the food's got to be better than anywhere. How good could the food be in Saudi Arabia? I don't know. They don't look like they're healthy. They don't live that long, despite all the pampering. They're miserable. First of all, they don't walk. It's too hot. Everything they do is like by car, jet. They live degenerate lives. They fly to London. You know what they do to the hotels over there? Have you heard anything from the hotel owners in England, what they do when they fly in, the princes? They like cook a lamb on the floor in the best hotel. They burn the rug in the wood. Then they pay for it. They throw like $1 million down to there. Anyway, then there's the Anthony Weiner thing. What are you going to say about that? He was in good shape for a perv. I wonder how he kept in such good shape. We'll see what shape he's in after a month in the slammer. Will they put him in protective? I wonder if Anthony Weiner gets a protective. If I were him, I'd grow a beard immediately. Okay, he got busted. Finally, they're putting him away. I'm sorry, the crotch shot with the child next to him, this is nothing what they gave him. The child should have been taken away, number one. And number two, well, you don't want to hear anything about it because he's a Democrat. So they land in Tel Aviv on Air Force One, walk down there, and she pushes the hand away. I told you what it was. It wasn't conjugal. It was cultural, period. She knew that it was wrong. If they held hands in front of Orthodox, there'd be like a big thing. That's it. So they're turning into, she doesn't want to be president. She wants to be somewhere. What stupid people in the media are. I can't believe it. But since they're in Israel, maybe I should give you some Yiddish words. You don't know this. This is an interesting fact of life right now in America, which is that in the 1930s, Yiddish was spoken by more than 10 million people. By the way, what is Yiddish? It's a combination of Hebrew words with Low German words, to put it bluntly. And 10 million people in America spoke this language. And many of them were in New York, by the way. But by 1945, 75% of them were gone. However, many of the words were written into the American vernacular and popular culture. And people don't even know what they mean. Some of you use these words and you don't even know where they come from. I'm not going to read you like you've all heard the word kosher. So you're like, oh, that's not kosher. That is kosher. Well, that means what's acceptable to Orthodox Jews, especially with food, right? It's like halal to the Arab, kosher to the Jew, right? Kosher. But it's taken on another meaning entirely, which is it clean or is it honest? Or you say that doesn't sound kosher. It means it doesn't sound honest, right?
Savage.